For this week's guest, we're joined by someone with his finger on the pulse of the tech world. Tom Morgan, deputy editor of Stuff magazine, is here to share his expertise on the latest gadgets, trends and all things tech. Now, Tom has a front row seat on the latest innovations, so we're excited to hear his thoughts on where the world of tech is headed. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for having me both.
Yeah, it's really great to see you, Tom. Thank you so much for your time. Thomas, as somebody that's, obviously deeply involved in technology journalism, how do you stay on top of the constant flood of new gadgets and emerging trends that are happening? And how do you pick, what to cover in the mag and on the website?
Well, I think the secret is I never take my eyes off the internet. I'm just constantly scrolling, constantly looking at, Twitter, RSS feeds, or X, RSS, any website that I've got bookmarked. I read an awful lot of what everyone else is writing, but also I think it's pretty hard to avoid now. Everywhere you look, we're getting adverts for phones, we're getting games consoles thrown down our faces, and I think it's almost difficult not to stay on top. But for me, I've got to say, obviously we take Stuff takes our sort of pick of what we like the look of, rather than what we feel. We don't need to cover everything. We need to cover the exciting stuff. And I think we like to think we've got a good idea of what that is, but it can, some people may disagree.
Well, you've been going for a long time, haven't you? We definitely agree, and it seems the public agrees as well. So to still be in the market after all these years is for fantastic.
Sure. I mean, stuff's been kicking around for 30 years now, wow. Which is incredible to say for a print title. In at the moment, obviously the web is where it's at, and we accept that Stuff website is doing very well, but obviously we still love our magazine. We love being able to hold something in our hands, and the fact that we've still got one coming out every month is really good for us.
That's really cool. I mean, we get asked this question a lot, and I'm going to give you it. It's a tricky one. There's so much innovation, as you just said. There's so much great stuff out there. But is there one gadget or product that you think is going to really shape the future, have a real impact on the next 10 years?
Well, I think I'm very, very intrigued to see what Nintendo have up their sleeve with the Switch 2. Really? And I think if they've taught us anything, is that don't overlook what they come up with. Because if we go back to when the Switch was a big deal, 2017, everyone was like, oh, hybrid console, is that going to work? You carry it around and you plug it in at home. And look where we are now. We've got things like the Steam Deck. We've got all sorts of companies coming out with PC-based handhelds because they've seen how popular the Switch is to take away on the move. And whatever they come up with next, I think is going to really encourage other people to do the same. So they've got a few things that are rumoured, we don't know for a fact, but apparently you're going to be able to take the Joy-Cons off and use one as a mouse and play like mouse and keyboard style games on a console, which is basically unheard of. So that'll make like first person shooters will suddenly become so much more playable on a tiny little handheld. And then there's talk that Microsoft are going to get involved. You might even be able to play Halo on a Nintendo console. That's like absolutely unheard of.
I was super excited about that too. Cool. And speaking of staying ahead in the digital world, if you're exploring any online tools, don't forget to protect your data. Our sponsor, NordVPN, has got you covered with top-notch online security. That's why Suzi and I swear by NordVPN, the world's leading VPN service.
Yeah, exactly, Jace. I've got it on my phone here to protect it, and you can add devices. As you know, I'm constantly on the move, whether I'm recording remotely from Australia or just travelling to MotoGP races, and sometimes you have to use a public Wi-Fi. It can be a lifesaver, but it's also a hacker's heaven, isn't it, really? But with NordVPN, I can connect to any network knowing that my data is fully encrypted, plus I use it to access some of my TV shows while I'm away.
Yeah, so I've now got an image of you kind of, watching, I don't know, countless episodes of Friends in a Melbourne cafe.
So whether you're a frequent traveller, a gamer, or an online shopper, NordVPN has you covered. It's quick, secure, and it's really, really easy to use.
Absolutely. Right now, NordVPN is offering an exclusive deal to our listeners and viewers. Just go to nordvpn.com/gadgetshow, and that link will give you 4 extra months on their 2-year plan. And there's a no-risk policy with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee.
So protect yourself online and unlock the internet's full potential with NordVPN. You can also find a clickable link in the description for this episode.
Epic.
Yeah, so you kind of touched on it a little bit there, because this probably falls into what's innovative and what's not just repackaged. But obviously, there's a lot of hype around gadgets and technology when they're launched and relaunched. And how do you assess what is just basically an add-on and what is actually innovative?
Right, I think we've got a good example at the moment. Okay, we've just had Samsung launch their brand new Galaxy phones, so the S25, S25 Ultra. You have to look pretty hard to see how they're different from last year, right? They've not done a huge amount of changes on the hardware front. They're really focused on the software. This Galaxy AI is where it's at for them, and that's all they're focused on. And I think for us, it's a little bit of a shame, because obviously we're fans of pushing hardware on, and I think Samsung's in such a good position to really be a force for that, and they don't seem to want to do it in some ways. I can understand if you look at their history with, say, like the Note 7 and the battery fiasco. So I can understand them not wanting to push battery technology quite as fast as, say, some of the brands coming out of China are right now. So your Oppo, your Vivo, your Honor, they're doing really exciting things with like silicon carbon batteries and battery charging that's like twice as fast as what your iPhones, your Galaxies or your Googles are capable of. So it would be good to see them sort of, maybe, I wouldn't say try harder, but sort of be willing to take risks more than they are on the hardware front. But then they are doing some really exciting stuff with Galaxy AI. I think this year I've actually started using it a lot more than I thought I would. And last year it was sort of like, okay, I can see where you're going with this. They're trying to make it happen. But this time it's sort of like, oh, actually, yeah, that sort of just works in the way I normally use my phone. So I'm going to try it out a bit more. So they're on the right path for that, for sure.
In that sector, obviously they're so well known for their foldable phones. What about foldable phones, or foldable anything for that matter? I remember a laptop at CES this year with a sort of pull-up screen. It's getting really interesting. That and wearables, what are we going to see in the next few years, do you think?
Well, I think the logic is trifold, right? So we've got one fold at the moment, so they're going to add a second fold. So we've seen a couple of brands that have done this, but Samsung hasn't quite got there yet. And obviously, Apple has very much stayed on the sidelines. They're not looking to get involved anytime soon, although the rumours do say keep an eye out for 2026. You never know.
Yeah.
I think the more I use them, the more I'm not worried about the size or the number of folds or anything fancy like that. They just need to feel like a phone when it goes in your pocket. So the thinner, the better. And obviously, the thinner you go, you have to make compromises on things like cameras or batteries because there's not any room to put them, right? So I think it's finding that balance of how to make it feel less like this is all about the fact it can fold and more just the fact that it's a phone and also you can open it up and suddenly you've got a bigger screen. And that bigger screen, it makes such a difference for pretty much everything you do with your phone. You know, YouTube videos, suddenly just that much more immersive. Writing out an email is suddenly that much easier. Games are that, really, really easy to play because your thumbs aren't covering up all the screen anymore. You've got all that extra space.
Do you think there's a sense sometimes that we could be at a point where tech is actually ahead of what people naturally are using and want to use, and it's almost down to the companies to guide the public into thinking they need this and creating a sort of new market for people to want something again?
I think it's a bit of that. I think it's a bit of it gives them something to sell, which is always a good thing for them. But yeah, for sure, it's companies' jobs and it's our job as well is to explain these complicated things that actually a lot of people don't quite get the hang of, and they don't understand why they need it. So obviously AI is the big one at the moment. AI can pretty much be stuck on anything you like, and suddenly it's like, what does that actually do? What's it doing? But what we have to do as journalists and tech experts is go, well, actually, this is doing something that you can't do yourself or would take you so much longer, that this is why it's convenient and actually it's worth getting excited about. And some things, certainly, I think are pretty niche. I don't know how often the average person is sort of making audio recordings and then transcribing them and translating them into other languages. Like, it's cool that tech can do that, but I'm guessing most people probably aren't doing that all the time. See, we're slightly different, and we do tend to use those things a bit more than others. But for that angle, it's an interesting idea. And then you look at, actually, I can draw this sketch I've got not an artistic bone in my body at all, but I can suddenly do a line drawing and then press one button, and it becomes this fully authentic Japanese anime style picture of my cat that there's no way I could do in a million years. So that is great, and I love that's something possible now that through 3-4 years ago, not at all, wouldn't be done at all.
What about, the fact that tech journalism can sometimes have a bit of a love-hate relationship with certain products. So putting a positive spin on that, is there a gadget or maybe a brand that you think doesn't get enough credit in the media?
Oh, enough credit? Or I think what I'm really liking at the moment is British brand Nothing. Oh
man, oh my God, the design of those phones.
They absolutely excel on styling, and it's not just the hardware, obviously. So Nothing, they're very well known for having transparency and for having lights on the back of their phones. But actually, the software side, they're doing things arguably better than pretty much any of the other phone brands are, and they're a tenth of the size just because they've got that eye for design. And they've got this sort of aesthetic that they're sticking to, and they are just running with it. And I think that's great to see. As I think you look at, say, like the rest of the phone world, or you look at laptops, say, how many laptops have gone, the MacBook looks pretty good. Maybe we should make something that looks a bit like the MacBook, or an iPhone, say, flat sides and flat glass looks pretty in. Let's do that rather than the curved screens that were cool 4 or 5 years ago. Whereas I think Nothing seems to exist a little bit off to the side of that, and I'd love to see them do their own thing. That's really cool.
I agree, and they're British.
They are
and
indeed.
If we're gonna sort of ever so slightly intentionally maroon ourselves post Brexit, then we need really to play to the strengths of that and fly the flag quite literally for that brand. If anyone listening or watching hasn't seen that, then maybe we should do something about it on this show. Actually, I think that's a really good call, Tom.
Oh, we could do sorry, Tom, you're in our production meeting.
Yeah.
I think we do a special on British tech brands.
What a great idea,
Tom. There's so many down in the hub in London. And
thanks for the inspiration.
Thanks for that idea, Tom.
Yeah. We'll pretend that we came up with it, though, Suzi.
Oh, for sure.
Cool. You heard it here first. Tom, is there anything on the horizon that you know about that you can tell us about that perhaps is a little unexpected, moving away, if possible, from AI?
Oh gosh, what's coming up? So obviously we've got, as we talked about earlier, Nintendo Switch 2 is going to dominate the news pretty much from April onwards.
It's going to dominate this podcast as well.
Very much. Yeah.
We'll talk about it after. So.
We're going to roll into a new big phone trade show in March, so Mobile World Congress. We're going to have a bunch of brands kicking off their sort of 2025 in Europe at that show. And I suppose the other thing that's sort of dominating the gaming landscape is Grand Theft Auto 6. And that is going to be absolutely colossal. I think if you look at how much money Grand Theft Auto 5 has managed to generate for Rockstar in over the course of its lifetime, they obviously... I think every other game manufacturer is going to basically steer clear for about 3 months. It's going to be an absolute barren landscape while GTA 6 comes out, but it will be colossal. It will be huge. And I think genuinely quite excited to see how they've evolved the game, because there's only so much that good graphics will do for that sort of experience, and it'll do a lot. But I think they're going to have to push it forward on other fronts as well, and I'm convinced they will.
Yeah, graphics are great, but you need some gangsters and bank jobs, and you need to better stand on an aeroplane and try and fly under a bridge. Yeah. That's what they need. As long as they've got that, I'm all in. GTA 6. What do you think of the rumour, Tom, that a lot of the games publishers are hoping that Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to launch at the £100 mark so that they can price up all of their games?
That'd be a bold move, Jason. I'm not entirely sure they could get away with it. Even a game like that, 100 is a big milestone for games, and as much as anything they do would set a precedent, I'm not sure that leap is quite high. What they could potentially do is go to the 80 mark. Obviously, we've seen sort of £70, $80 for PS5 games. I think they could make that stick, but anything higher, it's a big ask.
It is a big ask.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. But then again, if anyone can really go for it, they probably could.
Amazing. What a dream scenario, Suze.
Yeah,
Grand Theft Auto 6 on a Switch 2.
There you go. Tom, has there been a pinch me moment in your career where you've gone, I can't believe that I'm getting paid to do this?
There are a couple. Yeah, I won't lie. I did a week in Japan with Sony back in pretty much the first or second year I was in this job, and we were doing new TVs. So we spent the mornings in Sony's headquarters looking at test patterns and comparing models. And I think, okay, dark rooms, and going, yeah, it could be anywhere in the world. And then suddenly they take you outside and they show you the city, and you think, actually, this is incredible to have that opportunity. I think really, really appreciate the fact that we are very, very lucky, and that obviously with a lot of the tech world is based in the Far East, and obviously the West Coast of America. So we get to see certain countries more often than I think people realise. And certainly at the time, Japan felt like the future. It was just so out there in terms of what I was used to as this sort of West Country boy. I hadn't really travelled much beyond Europe. And suddenly it was neon everything, and it was crazy. And having gone back since, I think the rest of the world's almost caught up in some ways. But I still very much appreciate that. I got to see that. That was very cool.
Yeah, you know what, Tom? It's funny you mentioned Japan. I mean, Jason, I've been, many times, but I lived there in 1992, and it was like landing on a different planet. And when I go now, it just feels like another country, a beautiful country. I'm a big fan of Japan, but I absolutely hear what you're saying about other countries catching up. It's quite extraordinary how that's happened. But when I first went out there was no English spoken, no English signs. You go to a shop, you buy things, you get them back, and when you ate them, they weren't what you thought you were buying. So it's incredible, isn't it? We are very lucky to have these experiences. Tom Stuff has done a fantastic job surviving and thriving and growing. What's next?
So next issue will be on sale in the next couple of weeks. We're on newsstands every month, and obviously the website is pretty much a 24/7 rolling source of news and reviews. I believe the next issue we've got coming up is Smart Outdoor Kit. Everything you need to get fit, find your way in the wilderness, stay connected. We've got you covered.
Cool.
Tom, thank you so much for joining us on the Gadget Show podcast.
Thanks,
loved, Tom. I personally have loved listening to you. You'll have to come back.
Really appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Join us again. So good luck ongoing with everything. Enjoy, and especially playing with all the technology. Fantastic.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.